Now to the death of wrestling icon Hulk Hogan, who rocketed to fame in the 1980s, in the ring transforming the wrestling industry.
T was a moment that rippled across television news tickers, flooded social media timelines, and sank deep into the hearts of millions across the globe. The unthinkable had happened. Terry Gene Bollea, known to generations as Hulk Hogan, the immortal icon of professional wrestling, had died at the age of 71. For those who had grown up chanting Hulkamania at the top of their lungs, who had mimicked the shirt-ripping theatrics in living rooms and schoolyards, who saw in him a superhero larger than life and seemingly beyond mortality, the news was surreal. It wasn't just a death, it was the end of an era. According to an official statement released by the Clearwater Police Department, emergency services were dispatched at approximately 10 a.m. to Hogan's beachfront residence on the peaceful 1000 block of El Dorado Avenue in Clearwater, Florida. The call had reported cardiac arrest. Clearwater Fire and Rescue arrived within minutes, working desperately to stabilize him with CPR and advanced life-saving techniques. He was rushed to Morton Plant Hospital, but, despite every effort, Terry Bollea was pronounced dead at 11:17 a.m. The silence that followed was not an ordinary quiet. It was the kind that sits heavy and long, the weight of a collective grief that descended not just on wrestling fans, but on anyone who had ever believed in heroes. Condolences poured in from celebrities, wrestlers, athletes, and fans, a tidal wave of remembrance that honored not just the wrestler, but the man, the myth, and the monument that was Hulk Hogan. The making of a titan. From Augusta to the world stage, born on August 11, 1953, in the small town of Augusta, Georgia, Terry Bollea came into the world with little fanfare, but a spirit that would one day define an era. The son of Pietro Bollea, a hard-working Italian-American construction foreman, and Ruth Bollea, a homemaker who taught dance and imbued grace into the household, Terry's early life was rooted in the grit and sweat of the American working class. Though born in Georgia, it was in Tampa, Florida, a humid, sun-soaked city on the Gulf Coast, where Terry's true roots took hold. From an early age, he was a quiet and observant child, more comfortable watching from the sidelines than charging into the fray. But something shifted when he discovered professional wrestling on television. Legends like Dusty Rhodes, superstar Billy Graham, and Harley Race ignited something primal and electric within him. Their flamboyance, power, and defiance stirred his imagination. By the time he was a teenager, he had found another outlet for his growing physicality: weightlifting. Inspired by the emerging bodybuilding craze of the 1970s, Bollea poured himself into the gym. His body responded quickly, transforming into a towering mass of strength and symmetry. He played bass in a local rock band, Ruckus, and toured local clubs, even earning a modest following. But the stage lights of music would eventually give way to the arena lights of wrestling. Fate intervened when wrestling legends Jack and Gerald Briscoe saw him working out and introduced him to Hiro Matsuda, a Japanese wrestling legend and a notoriously brutal trainer. Matsuda didn't coddle rookies. He tested them, broke them down, and built them back up. On Bollea's first day of training, Matsuda famously broke his leg, not out of malice, but to see if he had the will to return. And return he did, weeks later, limping, determined, and unwavering. That perseverance would become the bedrock of Hulk Hogan's identity. The birth of Hulkamania, a golden era in wrestling entertainment. Terry Bollea's early foray into wrestling saw him cycling through a variety of personas, from the Super Destroyer to Sterling Golden, flashy experimental gimmicks that hinted at star potential but never quite clicked. It wasn't until he landed in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF, under the guidance of Vince McMahon Sr., that the name Hulk Hogan was born. McMahon Sr. reportedly came up with Hulk after noticing Bolea's massive frame standing beside Lou Ferrigno, the actor who played the Incredible Hulk. The name stuck, and soon the identity of Hulk Hogan began to take shape, not just as a character, but as a cultural phenomenon. His towering physique, 6 feet 7 inches tall, 300 pounds of sun-kissed muscle, was only part of the appeal. Hogan had charisma in spades. His energy was infectious. His eyes blazed with confidence, and his voice, raspy, commanding, full of old-school bravado, could ignite a crowd in seconds. When Vince McMahon Jr. took the reins of the now renamed World Wrestling Federation, WWF, in the early 1980s, he had a vision: to turn wrestling into a national and eventually global spectacle. Hogan became the cornerstone of that vision. In 1984, he defeated the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden to win his first WWF World Heavyweight Championship, and Hulkamania was born. Hogan's character was the quintessential American hero, unapologetically bold, morally upright, and physically dominant. He wore red and yellow like a warrior's armor, preached to kids about saying their prayers and taking their vitamins, and told fans to believe in themselves. It wasn't just wrestling anymore. It was theater, myth, and marketing brilliance all wrapped into one sun-drenched package. Toys flew off shelves, T-shirts flooded stadiums, action figures, lunchboxes, cartoons, even a Saturday morning show enshrined him as not just a wrestler, but a generational icon. Clash of Titans, rivalries that cemented a legacy. Hogan's in-ring career was defined by more than championships. It was built on the rivalries that shaped the narrative of modern wrestling. None was more historic than his clash with Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 in 1987, a match that transcended the squared circle and entered the annals of sports legend. The buildup was biblical. Hogan, the beloved champion. Andre, the betrayed friend turned colossus of vengeance. In front of a record-breaking crowd of over 93,000 fans at the Pontiac Silverdome, Hogan performed the unthinkable. He body-slammed the 520-pound Andre and pinned him in the center of the ring. That moment, etched into pop culture memory, was more than just a wrestling finish. It was a mythic act of triumph, a visual allegory of good conquering impossible odds. His alliance and eventual rivalry with Randy Macho Man Savage produced the Mega Powers saga, a drama of friendship, jealousy, and betrayal that played out with operatic grandeur. The Ultimate Warrior, Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, Hogan's list of opponents read like a who's who of wrestling royalty. But perhaps his most dramatic reinvention came in 1996, when he shocked the world by turning heel in World Championship Wrestling, WCW. Aligning with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash to form the New World Order, NWO, Hogan shed his good guy persona and embraced villainy with astonishing effectiveness. The black-and-white-clad Hogan sneered, cheated, and dominated in a way that revitalized his career and redefined his legacy. The move was a masterstroke, proving that Hogan wasn't just a one-note hero. He was an evolving performer who understood the heartbeat of the business and the audience. Beyond the ring, Hollywood, scandals, and redemption, Hogan's influence didn't stop at wrestling. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, he had become a full-fledged crossover star. Hollywood came calling, casting him in films like No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando, and Mr. Nanny. Films that may not have been critical successes, but were beloved by fans and added to his pop culture mystique. He appeared on talk shows, commercials, and even hosted Saturday Night Live. For a time, Hulk Hogan was as recognizable as any American icon, from Superman to Sylvester Stallone. But fame, as always, came with shadows. The 2000s brought a series of personal and professional setbacks. His reality TV show, Hogan Knows Best, lifted the veil on his family life, only to reveal tensions and turmoil. His divorce from Linda Hogan was messy and public. In 2015, Hogan faced a career-threatening scandal when audio tapes surfaced, revealing racially insensitive remarks. WWE terminated its relationship with him, removing his likeness from promotional materials and the Hall of Fame. For a man who had once symbolized values and virtue, the fall was painful and deeply public. And yet, redemption found a path. Hogan issued multiple apologies, sought forgiveness, and gradually reintegrated into WWE programming by 2018. For some, the stain remained. For others, his acknowledgement of failure and his attempt to grow beyond it was enough. It was a reminder that even the mightiest figures stumble, and that their legacies are often complicated tapestries woven from glory and regret. Legacy eternal, the man behind the mustache. As the years wore on, Hogan's in-ring appearances became sparse, and the physical toll of decades in the ring became more evident. Multiple back surgeries, a replaced hip, and lingering pain kept him largely out of the spotlight. But when he did appear, whether to induct fellow legends into the Hall of Fame or to make cameo appearances at WrestleMania, the roar of the crowd reminded the world just how much he had meant to generations. Children who had once idolized him had grown into adults who brought their own children to see the legend live. Hulk Hogan was no longer just a wrestler. He was a living myth, a totem of childhood, inspiration, and larger-than-life storytelling. His legacy transcended belts and booking decisions. He changed the way wrestling was marketed, consumed, and celebrated. Without Hogan, there would be no wrestling boom of the 1980s, no crossover into mainstream pop culture, no foundation upon which stars like The Rock, John Cena, or Roman Reigns could build. His shadow loomed large, even in absence. And now, in death. That legacy feels even more poignant. The yellow and red, the theme song that made arenas quake, the pose, the flex, the grin, all of it belongs now to memory and history. A final farewell to the immortal. The man who once told us to train, say your prayers, and take your vitamins has taken his final bow. Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, the immortal, is gone, but Hulkamania will never die. It lives on in the hearts of fans, in the stories we tell, in the echoes of arena chants, and in the endless replay of those moments that shaped not just wrestling, but entertainment history. As fans gather, candles flicker in vigil, and tributes pour in from all corners of the world. We're reminded that some figures don't fade, they ascend, they become legend. Terry Bollea may have left this world, but Hulk Hogan, the hero, the villain, the icon, the human being, will live forever in the ring of our imagination. The final bell has tolled, but the roar of the crowd will echo always. Beyond wrestling. The crossover appeal of a pop culture phenomenon. Long before today's wrestlers became multi-platform superstars with crossover appeal in Hollywood, social media, and streaming television, there was Hulk Hogan, blazing that trail with charisma, boldness, and unmatched stage presence. Born Terry Bollea, the towering blonde grappler with the handlebar mustache and booming voice didn't just dominate wrestling's golden age in the 1980s and 1990s, he transcended it. Hogan's mainstream breakthrough came in 1982 with a role in Rocky III. playing the over-the-top character Thunderlips, the ultimate male. In just a few minutes of screen time, he commanded the screen with such flamboyance and intensity that it was clear. This man was made for more than just the ring. That cameo wasn't just a sideshow, it was a cultural moment that introduced Hogan to millions who had never watched professional wrestling. He emerged from the film not as a gimmick, but as a legitimate entertainer with magnetic crossover appeal. From there, Hogan launched into a series of family-oriented films that, while often critically panned, became cult favorites among young viewers. Suburban Commando, Mr. Nanny, and Santa with Muscles showcased a softer, more comedic side of the wrestling icon. Brawny yet endearing, tough but teddy bear-like. These films weren't meant for Oscar nods. They were crafted for Saturday afternoons, VHS rentals, and the imaginations of children who saw Hogan not just as a muscle-bound hero, but as a protector, a dad, a goofy warrior against everyday villains. Hogan's reach didn't stop there. In the mid-2000s, he became a reality TV staple with Hogan Knows Best, a show that peeled back the curtain on his personal life. Viewers were invited into his Florida mansion, watched him raise his teenage children, and saw the daily trials of celebrity parenting. Though later clouded by controversy, the show was a ratings success and helped bridge the gap between Hogan's in-ring bravado and his real-life persona, revealing a man navigating fame, fatherhood, and a changing media landscape. But it wasn't just movies and television that kept Hogan in the cultural bloodstream. His animated likeness appeared in episodes of Robot Chicken, The Simpsons, and American Dad, often poking fun at or celebrating his larger-than-life persona. His voice echoed in Saturday morning cartoon PSAs promoting anti-bullying and self-confidence, and his presence lingered in cereal box promotions, video games, action figures, and wrestling-themed birthday cakes. Hogan wasn't just a man, he was a brand. He was the red and yellow symbol of a generation that believed in superheroes, muscle-bound saviors, and the fight between good and evil. He was Americana in spandex, and for a long time, there was no corner of pop culture untouched by his presence. Whether on the silver screen or a cereal commercial, the spirit of Hulkamania surged far beyond the confines of the squared circle. Shadows behind the spotlight, scandal, controversy, and redemption. But with every larger-than-life persona comes the fragility of being human. Beneath the booming voice and the endless supply of catchphrases was Terry Bollea, a man battling demons, weathering heartbreak, and confronting consequences. The public image of Hulk Hogan, the ultimate good guy, the face of wrestling's golden era, began to fracture in the 2000s. The first cracks were personal. Hogan's high-profile marriage to Linda Bollea crumbled amidst accusations, tabloid coverage, and bitter court battles. The divorce proceedings painted a painful picture of a broken home, strained finances, and disillusionment. The children, Nick and Brooke, who had once been fixtures on Hogan Knows Best, found themselves caught in a whirlwind of media scrutiny and emotional fallout. Nick's tragic 2007 car accident, which left his passenger with permanent brain damage, further cast a shadow over the family's once glamorous image. Lawsuits followed. So did public feuds. The image of the perfect wrestling dad began to unravel, and with it, the illusion of Hulkamania's invincibility. However, it was the events of 2015 that brought Hogan's public downfall into sharp national focus. Private recordings, leaked to the press, captured Hogan making racially offensive remarks, language that stunned fans, rocked the wrestling world, and prompted WWE to take immediate action. He was erased from their website, removed from the Hall of Fame's public pages, and distanced from all branding. For many, it was a betrayal that felt deeply personal. Hogan wasn't just another celebrity caught in scandal. He was a childhood hero, a moral figure in a world of make-believe ethics. To hear him use such language wasn't just shocking, it was heartbreaking. The backlash was swift and fierce. Longtime fans expressed anger, disappointment, and hurt. Organizations that once welcomed him now stayed silent. Hogan, meanwhile, issued multiple public apologies, expressing remorse, shame, and a desire to learn and grow from the moment. His exile from public life was long and, in many ways, humbling. Gone were the arenas, the cameras, the constant adulation. In their place, reflection, silence, and a slow, arduous path toward reconciliation. WWE eventually reinstated him into the Hall of Fame in 2018, not as a declaration of absolution, but as an acknowledgement that redemption is complex. For some, it was too soon. For others, it was the right move. In wrestling, a world built on reinvention, comebacks, and second chances, Hogan's return felt bittersweet. Fans grappled with how to reconcile the man with the myth. Could you still love Hulk Hogan and condemn Terry Bollea's choices? Could you remember the joy without ignoring the pain? These questions didn't come with easy answers, but they added nuance to a legacy once seen as untouchable. Hogan's fall wasn't just a scandal, it was a reckoning. The political turn, endorsement, and public reaction. In the twilight of his public life, Hulk Hogan once again stirred controversy, this time not from the ring or a recording, but from the political stage. In 2024, he stepped onto the platform of the Republican National Convention to deliver a passionate endorsement of Donald Trump. Dressed in his signature bandana and sunglasses, flanked by roaring chants and red, white, and blue fireworks, Hogan declared Trump a fighter, a patriot, and a brother, drawing symbolic parallels between the drama of politics and the theater of wrestling. The endorsement sent shockwaves across both the political and entertainment landscapes. Some saw it as a natural extension of Hogan's performative bravado, larger than life, confrontational, and unafraid to take a stand. Others viewed it as a tone-deaf plunge into divisiveness at a time when the nation was already deeply polarized. The backlash was immediate. Social media lit up with opinions from both sides. Critics accused Hogan of politicizing his legacy, of alienating fans who once united under the umbrella of Hulkamania, regardless of political affiliation. Supporters praised his courage, applauding him for standing up for what he believed in. The moment once again revealed the complex reality of fame, where personal beliefs become public battlegrounds, and every action is scrutinized through 1,000 different lenses. Hogan, as always, remained unapologetically himself. He had never been one to shy away from a fight, even if the ring this time was ideological. Whether one saw it as brave or brash, the endorsement was a reminder that Hogan was more than just a nostalgic figure. He was still, in some form, a cultural provocateur. The final chapter, A Nation Reflects and Wrestling Mourns. When news broke of Hulk Hogan's passing, it felt as though a chapter of American history had closed. Fans young and old paused. Some cried. Others shared stories. All seemed to feel the weight of the moment. WWE announced that a special episode of SmackDown would be dedicated entirely to his memory. On that Friday night, the lights in the arena dimmed. The bell rang 10 times, slow, reverent, echoing into the rafters where his banner once waved. Video montages played of his greatest matches, body-slamming Andre the Giant, ripping his shirt before WrestleMania, flexing to the crowd with Real American blaring in the background. But it wasn't just his wrestling achievements that were remembered. The tributes poured in from across the world, not just from WWE legends like Ric Flair and Bret Hart, but from actors, musicians, athletes, and everyday fans who had grown up with posters of Hogan on their bedroom walls. Murals appeared in cities around the globe: New York, Tokyo, Los Angeles, London, each depicting Hogan in his iconic yellow gear, arms raised, grin wide, a symbol of childhood nostalgia and raw charisma. Candlelight vigils formed outside arenas. Fans wore old Hulkamania shirts, some faded with time but still bursting with meaning. Social media flooded with personal stories. A dad taking his son to a live match, a mother remembering how her daughter begged for a Hulk Hogan birthday cake, a teenager recounting a tough time in life, eased by Hogan's voice, encouraging him to believe in yourself, brother. In a world often cold and chaotic, Hogan had represented something warm, something heroic, something larger than life. The enduring spirit of Hulkamania. And now, with Terry Bollea gone, what remains is more than just memories. What remains is Hulkamania, the feeling, the force, the phenomenon. Hulkamania wasn't just a brand. It was a belief system, a cultural heartbeat. It told kids that heroes could wear boots and bandanas, that good could triumph over evil, that strength wasn't just physical, it was moral. Hogan was a living myth, an American folk hero with muscles and megaphones. He taught a generation to say their prayers and take their vitamins. And in doing so, he shaped more than just wrestling. He shaped how we imagined victory, honor, and resilience. Though his legacy will always include the blemishes and the controversies, it will also include the laughter, the inspiration, the thunderous ovations, and the wide-eyed wonder of millions. His voice, his music, his energy, they echo still. In the roar of the crowd, in the twinkle of nostalgia, in the quiet gratitude of fans who were once children staring at the television, believing that maybe, just maybe, they could be heroes too. As the lights go down and the pyrotechnics fade, the world says goodbye not just to a wrestler, but to an era. Terry Bollea has departed, but Hulk Hogan, forever immortal, forever running wild, lives on in every chant, in every memory, in every heart that ever dared to believe. Rest in power, Hulk Hogan. And to the millions who once asked, "What you gonna do, brother?" the answer now is clear. We remember, we honor, and we carry on. Your one click can help us keep creating awesome stuff.